Our Way to a Wonderful Life message is titled, Living by Faith. Living by Faith. Let's look at these words from the great Dr. Martin Luther King. He tells us power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. So when he's talking about this love, he's talking about the power of God. God and love are synonymous. God and life are synonymous. God and faith is synonymous because faith is the power of God. God is power, God is intelligence, God is spirit, but it's that power of God that changes things when we align our mind with it. When we align our mind with it. God doesn't change things. We change things by allowing ourselves to believe in the greater, allowing ourselves to tap into that greater intelligence, that greater power, that greater love that is God, and allowing it to move through whatever it is that we must move through in order to realize the greater things, the greater life, the more joyful life. The mystical Ernest Holmes tells us the intelligence by and through which we perceive that there is a spiritual presence and an infinite spirit in the universe constitutes our receptivity to it and decides its flow into our life. Now, spirit is another word for mind. There's this one mind, which is God, that we're all drawing from. Every thought, every idea comes from that one mind, that one intelligence, that one spirit. So each and every one of us have the opportunity every day to realize more and more of it. We have made a riddle out of simplicity, Dr. Holmes tells us. Therefore, we have not read the sermons written in stones, nor interpreted the light of love running through life. To return to a sane simplicity is one of the first and most important things to do. All people receive some light, and this light is always the same light. There is one nature diffused throughout all nature, one God incarnated in all peoples. So let's take those words into our mind and realize the intelligence by and through which I perceive that there is a spiritual presence and an infinite mind in the universe constitutes my receptivity to it and decides its flow through me. We must realize this in our mind, take this into our mind as the truth for us, and start realizing that we always know what we need to know. We can always do what we need to do. We can always be that which we choose to be when we tap into this intelligence which is God. And the Mastermind Jesus tells us in Matthew 13:31 through 32, we can read these words about Jesus where it says, he tells us another parable, the author of this passage tells us, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. So we take that into our mind and we understand it and we believe it to be true. So whatever it is that we must do it quickly. So let's allow ourselves to believe this and let's let ourselves become quickly into that realization that this is what's happening. And what is going on in our life, what is happening in our life, is something far greater than what we can imagine, that each and every one of us will have that opportunity to realize that something greater that comes to our awareness, comes into our mind, if our mind be focused on the infinite. If our mind be focused on the infinite. So once again, Jesus said another parable he put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. So we know he's telling us that even though our faith may only be the size of a mustard seed in comparison to the physical size of a mustard seed, which is one of the smallest seeds on the planet. In the scripture it tells us it is the smallest seed. That wasn't the truth, but it was pretty close, that we can do great things. We can do great things. Let's allow ourselves to believe it. Let's allow ourselves to know what it means to live by faith. Think about, what does it mean to me to live by faith? Most of us are aware that a positive faith is aligned with God the good, and we learn that love rules through law. And so we know that in order for us to gain the good that we seek to experience, we must understand both aspects of the nature of the universe, love and law. Love is the givingness of the idea. Love is the givingness of the desire. The law of God, which is a law of good, brings it forth into our experience. We must reach out in our mind to a greater idea of God than what the world has given us. God is no big guy in the sky with all the attributes of humanity. God is not a judge. God is not a jury. God is a presence, the power, the spirit, the intelligence that rules through the universe universally, which means everyone and everything is being responded to by God corresponding to the nature of our consciousness. God is not religion, and religion doesn't always give us a relationship with God that is based on truth. The mastermind Jesus revealed that religion gives power to man and separates us from the very truth that can set us free. He tells us freedom comes through the realization that both love and law are of God. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way. Love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. As we gain the broader viewpoint, we shall see that life must contain two fundamental characteristics. We shall see that there is an infinite spirit operating through an infinite and immutable law, and in this cosmos, not chaos, finds an eternal existence in reality. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. Since the law is impersonal, we can depend on it. Otherwise, we could not. We can always depend on love and learn to trust its spontaneity. As we affirm with conviction that we know what to do or that we have what we need to have, this conviction of mind aligned with our faith, aligned with that power of faith within us, draws into us the very thing we affirm is true for us. Life always becomes, to us, the particular thing we need when we believe that it becomes to us that particular thing. Life always becomes to us the particular thing we need when we believe that it becomes to us that particular thing. So Dr. Holmes tells us these words to awaken our soul, There's no difference in Jesus saying, it is the Father's good pleasure to give to you. We must know that we are required to have faith, because faith is the strength of our soul, and it is this faith in both the love and the law of God that makes everything worthwhile. All discord, all chaos, all the dramas of the world are coming from a lack of understanding of the implications of law and love. That's what Jesus was referring to when he said sowing and reaping. Sow into your mind the good thing, sow into your mind, and you will find yourselves realizing what's going on. You will realize what's going on with your life. You'll realize what's going on with your thoughts about the world in which you live, and all these things. We must allow ourselves to believe with a deeper feeling of faith that all these good things will be ours, right where we are. That's what Jesus said in the Lord's Prayer, which is the key to life. You give us this day our daily bread. And so we allow ourselves to understand that symbology of that word, bread. We realize that it means life, sustained life in the good, the abundant life. With all that get understanding. And all discord comes from our lack of understanding the implications of love and law, both demanding that we think universally rather than personally. In other words, the good for all. So many times people think, oh, I want money, or I want this, or I want that, but they don't think about all the other people who will be blessed and prospered when they receive it. We must expand our thinking, expand our thoughts, expand our awareness and understand that whatever it is that we receive, it must not only be for us, that's a selfish prayer, but it must be for all those who will participate in our prosperity. All those who will participate in our prosperity. So let's allow ourselves to really accept within our mind, our heart, and our soul that everything, every prayer that thinks universally, every prayer that takes in the consequences of the good results of our prayer in a greater way for other people, but then when it becomes universal rather than personal, it is grounded in reason and it's grounded in intelligence, and it eliminates any fear or emotion or self-doubt. And this is why we can read in the Scriptures once again, with all thy getting, get understanding. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, it is life, it is law, it is reason. And so we can do these things that we need to do. Each and every one of us have that potential to do the things that we need to do immediately in our mind first. First in our mind, then in our experience. As within, so without. I say that all the time. It's in the Old Testament of the Holy Bible. It's in so many current philosophies and spiritual teachings, and it was in the Bhagavad Gita. As within, so without. Everything happens according to the measure of our faith. In order for us to realize that infinite possibility for us, we must allow ourselves to focus on the universal. So in expressing God through us, it becomes more fully conscious of God's own being. So God allows itself to move through our mind, our heart, and our soul as the good, and in doing so, God is really realizing through us a greater experience of its own life, that life which is God expressing through all life. Our relationship with God and life is one of unity, not separation. But we must be conscious of it as it passes through our consciousness, just as we must be conscious of the good that we desire to experience. It is the purpose. It is the purpose of prayer, affirmative prayer, to be specific and definite in order to align our mind with the power, the presence, the intelligence of the Spirit in order to experience the good that we desire. And Jesus tells us in those very simple words, ask, which means to claim, and it shall be given to you. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and you shall find the doors of opportunity open for you. So those words are just as clear and just as simple and just as truthful and just as purposeful today as they ever were. Our mind must conceive before the creative energy of the Spirit can produce. We must supply the avenue through which it can work. It is ready and willing. It is its nature to spring into being through our thought and our action. But we can't realize the good if our thoughts and our actions are based on false ideas and false truths and false beliefs and negative impressions. We must get ourselves in tune with it in a greater way, get ourselves in tune with life in a greater way. The mind must conceive before the creative energy, that is the Spirit of God's intelligence, power, can produce. We must supply the avenue through which it can work. It is ready and willing. It is its nature to spring into being through our thought and action. And this is why so many of us fail to realize our hopes, our dreams, and our desires. We want to figure out what is wrong rather than let our mind conceive the good that we desire. So we displace the old thoughts with the new thought. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about what you were thinking before. Don't worry about yesterday's consciousness, but develop that new consciousness that's open and receptive to the greater good, open and receptive to the greater joy. To resist our good is to fight, and what we fight will ignite and consume our hopes and our dreams and our desires. So many times you hear people say they're prayer warriors. What are you warring against? God, the good, is omnipresent. Jesus said it is the Father's good pleasure to give to you. What are you warring against? You're warring against the nothingness. As we read in the book of Isaiah, I am the Lord, besides me, there is none other. Besides me, there is no thing. There is only nothingness. So what is it you're warring against? Stop the prayer warrior nonsense and just realize that God is the good, that everything good that we can imagine for ourselves, it takes nothing away from anyone else, that includes as many people in that good as we can imagine, is ours. It is ours for the asking. It is ours to claim. It is ours to realize for ourselves. Each and every one of us have that opportunity today and every day, many, many times during the day, to realize the greater life, the joyful life, the abundant life in our mind in a greater way. Let the possibilities, the limitlessness of the Spirit move through your mind, your heart, and your soul in a greater way. Let all that negative chatter from the world, all that noise and nonsense that doesn't give us anything but a duplication of the miseries of the past, let all that go. Let it go back to whenceforth it came. As Jesus said, get thee behind me, Satan. In other words, get thee behind me. Any idea or thought that diminishes my spirit, that diminishes my faith, that diminishes my relationship with God, that diminishes that intelligence and power and spirit of God as it flows through my mind, my heart, and my soul today and every day. Today and every day. Take that into your mind. Take it into your heart. Feel the love of the joy of being a part of life in a greater way. Let the power and the intelligence and the Spirit of God move through you, move through your mind, move through your heart, move through your soul, and let yourself be living by faith in all that you do. Don't think your faith is only applicable when it comes to thinking and praying and sitting in meditation. You are living faith everywhere we go. Every thought we think, every idea that we accept as true, that is living our faith. We are living our faith every moment of every day. That's why we can read in the Holy Scriptures, pray without ceasing. In other words, be conscious of what you're thinking, be conscious of what you're believing, be conscious of what ideas you're accepting as true, because you will realize the consequences of those things, Thoughts are things. Thoughts have power. Thoughts are part of the spirit. Thoughts are part of mind. We think in our mind, so we know that if our thought can cause our face to blush with embarrassment, just imagine what a thought can do to our physical body when we're thinking about sickness and illness. Just think what a thought can do when we're thinking about our finances and we're seeing ourselves poor and restricted and not having money. Those thoughts just duplicate themselves like a domino effect and move through our experience out of control. So let's put the good thought, the more positive thought, the more truthful thought, that thought which will create the greater things still in our experience in all things that concern us. Let's put that into our mind, and let's let our faith make the wholeness of all things that concern us in a greater way. Let's realize this morning, as more than we've ever realized before, that faith is the power within me. Faith, that living faith, power at its best. We must understand this. This is from the great Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. And justice means that what's good for one is good for all. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Think about others as you would have others think unto you, and realize within your mind, your heart, and your soul that we're all of one spirit. We're all living through one life, on one intelligence, one power, one expression of beingness, and allow ourselves to feel the presence of the Spirit, feel the presence of God moving through our mind, our heart, and our soul in the greatest way possible today, right where we are. The kingdom of heaven, Jesus tells us. This is a mastermind Jesus, the one who understood our relationship with God and life greater than anyone else ever did, and anyone else No one since him has understood it in any greater way. It says the kingdom of heaven, that is that unseen good, that good that's prepared for us on the unseen side of life. The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof. In other words, we're to take into our mind that seed thought that God does give us this day our daily bread. And that bread is the symbol of all the good desires in our heart, all the good desires of our mind, and allow ourselves to see ourselves being prospered and healed and blessed in a myriad of ways that's far beyond our imagination. And let the Spirit of God reign supreme in our mind today and every day in a greater way than ever before. And we will be living by faith, and by living by faith, we will find our fortune in our health, our prosperity, our finances, our success, our creative experience. So let our faith be our fortune. Live by faith, and the fortune will follow. And so it is. Amen. Once again, I want to thank you for being with me this morning. It's been my great pleasure to have you, and I hope you join me for my next broadcast right here on WKDI AM 840.